Okay, good evening, everybody. We will call the May 19th meeting of the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board to order. Welcome to all those that are joining us. Appreciate you taking the time out of your evening. Start with the roll call here. Dr. Way.
Here.
Representative Will. Do not see Representative Will yet. Representative Benavides.
Here.
Hello. Representative Exum.
Good evening.
Good evening. Councilwoman Joseph.
Present.
Hello. Commissioner Chimino is excused. Director Redhorse.
Present. Good evening.
Good evening. Director Limerick.
Present and BC. The blow is
Hello.
around here, but still present, even though the wind is trying to take me elsewhere right now. So
Oh, very good. Be careful there. Director Barry.
Here.
Good evening. Mr. Benitez. Do not see Mr. Benitez yet. Ms. Nelson.
Here.
Hi, good evening. Dr. Gonzalez.
Here. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you. Tim Mock is here. Director Garcia.
Yes, I'm present, Mr. Chair.
Good evening. And Director Wolf is excused absent as well. So that shows that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 not in attendance, 11 that are. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Next up here, agenda item number 3, review and approve the May agenda. Are there any comments, thoughts, questions, or edits? If none, I will accept a motion to approve the May agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion carries. Next, agenda item 4, review and approve the February and April summaries. Are there any questions, comments about the Representative Benavides?
I only had a question more than a comment. On page 2, it's agenda item 5. It's the part about our renaming Chinaman Gulch to Yangsing. I thought Yangsing was 2 words, not 1 word.
Oh, sorry about the initial confusion, but it actually, the reason why it was originally 2 words is because each word represents a character, but the 2 characters together means resilience. And I thought that it would be, well, believe it or not, less confusing if the words were combined.
That's fine. I just wanted to know why, because I had seen it both ways and to see.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry about that, but.
No, it's fine.
Okay, great. Any additional questions, thoughts, comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the summaries.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Great. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, on to board member updates and announcements. You all saw the DNR update in your agenda there. I actually first want to take a moment here and congratulate our legislators for their work this legislative session. We at DNR especially thank you. From this month's update, you can see that we got a lot accomplished that we're very excited about for conservation, recreation, water, watersheds, and wildfire mitigation. I know that your work does not end there, but again, just thank you very much for that session, your efforts, and I hope you've had some time to relax and enjoy life a little bit before you're back in the fray here. Also, it was brought to our attention that I want to recognize Dr. Wei will be receiving an award for the 2022 Colorado Asian American Hero Award. Is that correct, Dr. Wei?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, that is correct.
That is very cool, and congratulations, and that is well deserved, and we're very excited for you.
Well, thank you very much. And by the way, I never in my life thought that the word cool would ever be applied to me in any way whatsoever.
Oh, I think we all think you're pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Did I make a,
Um,
did I make a motion that we resolve that William Way is cool? Would that be, it's probably,
We could, I think we need,
I
we can put
second that motion.
by acclamation.
beyond our authority, but I don't know why it should be. I personally would just say, I would make that motion if it is not beyond our purview.
No, that is a very big deal. So again, congratulations. We're very excited.
Thank you.
As you also saw from the DNR notes, we will be getting a full-time tribal liaison and tribal apprentice within the organization. We are very excited about this opportunity to further our work with tribal governments and individuals around the state, and as well, those positions will also be able to dedicate some time to assisting staffing this board in its work. So we're looking forward to that assistance. We will be putting together the position description, and I will share with all of you when that job announcement goes out. Director Redhorse, I particularly look forward to working with you in getting those positions filled. Now, let me just stop there and just see if there's any questions about the DNR updates. And then I've got a few other things I'd like to just bring up for discussion here. Okay, seeing none, I'll move on here. So from our meeting in April, working through the Secretarial Order 3404, I mentioned we needed to reassess where we left off and kind of work to chart the path forward for the rest of the year. And today's agenda, you'll see, picks up with the proposals that we had under consideration before we paused for 3404. Some of those items have been under consideration since last October.
Hang
And
on, hold on.
I want to make sure that we first concentrate on bringing those to conclusion. The action list for Colorado, I was looking at this, stands at 31 naming or renaming proposals. Counting our work on Secretarial Order 3404 and the other naming proposals that we considered over the last 12 months, we've made a recommendation on 8 of those. And I think in the next couple of meetings, I'd like to wrap up these next 4 here. And then I would like to introduce a few more of those for us to work through, open up and work through with some subcommittee work. And then in the course of working through those, make sure that we take up Mount Evans by no later than the end of the year. And I think in doing so, we stand a chance of working that action list down to having just 8 remaining proposals going into the next year. And I think that's kind of exciting. Here's though how I kind of want us to think about and what I propose that we do in terms of making this work kind of move forward in that way, is that I'd like us to go to meeting every other month. We've got some really good experience in understanding how we can make some significant progress. And I'd like to shift our staff's time from preparing the work for every meetings, kind of every 4 weeks, trying to get out the pulling the meeting together, compiling the meeting agenda items, notifying individuals, and moving that work along in actually supporting the subcommittee work in a more, I think, robust and effective manner. So it's a shifting of the workload a little bit. And that would have result, I think, in us providing less updates at each monthly meeting, and actually free us up to make sure that we are doing the outreach that is needed and providing the assistance to making that work. And I think that this is a better use of everyone's time, actually. And I think that we can then accomplish all of that by shifting that work a little bit. This is not unlike our other boards and commissions, Parks and Wildlife, CWCB, MLRB, the Groundwater Commission, for example. Only one of those meets once a month, and often we cancel some meetings depending on the need. They also have some more robust and dedicated staff to facilitate the meetings and then do the work in between them. And we can always add a meeting if need be. So let me just stop there and get some thoughts and comments and see what you all think about going to every other month and making sure that we're actually freeing up some time to do more of the outreach and work on these individual proposals. Representative Benavides.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to do the unmute. You know, I'm not opposed to that because looking at the agenda, I'm not sure we're ready on most of the ones in front of us. And they're probably gonna have to be laid over at least till the next meeting. And I know there'll be a report on one community group that was met with, but I don't know that it's happened on the others. And I think if there was more support from your office to get those set up and to do some of the outreach on it, maybe it would be more productive. But I have a feeling tonight, most of the stuff is going to be carried forward for another month.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But I do think that in terms of that initial outreach to stakeholders that we've talked about, it takes a lot of work just kind of working to put these meetings together. Also, the report out to the governor's office, organizing that. So I appreciate that, Representative Benavides, and let's give that a shot. Any other thoughts? Okay, so hearing none, I think it sounds like we're going to be good, and we'll go ahead and try that out. Now, let me move on to see if there are any other board member updates or announcements. Seeing none, we will close this agenda item and then move on to agenda item 6, an update on Secretarial Order 3404. I first want to again congratulate this board for its work in April, working through 3404. I think we accomplished a lot and did so very effectively and within the spirit of the Secretarial Order. The governor did concur with our recommendations, and they were submitted to the task force on time. And we've invited Ms. Runyon from the USBGN to kind of give us an update on where things stand with the rest of that process. So Ms. Runyon, thank you again for taking the time late in Washington, D.C. on the East Coast there to join us.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you again. Hear me okay? Thanks. Things have been relatively quiet since the end of the public and tribal comment period. Those ended on April 25th, as you know, and the task force has received all the public comments. There were something around 6,600 comments submitted. So there's a lot to plow through. As it turned out, about 80% of those were a form letter that the Wilderness Society had posted on its website, asking its members to submit their support for this endeavor. So once you weeded out the 80% or so, that left us with somewhere around between 1,000 and 2,000 actual comments. My understanding from that, there were somewhere around I think about 250 or so actual proposals that came in as replacement names. So as you recall, there was the original candidate list that was developed based solely on just surrounding geographic features. So the public comments have been added to that spreadsheet now and are on the list for consideration. And of course, those would include the list submitted by the Colorado board. I got word today that the Department of the Interior has just completed its analysis of the tribal comments. Again, we had not seen those before. I still have not seen them, but I understand they include somewhere over 100 proposals from tribal governments. So the next step will be for the task force to take all this information and essentially mesh it together so that there's one list of the existing names and then the various replacements that have been offered. So you've got the 5 candidate names, you've got anything that was already pending before the Board on Geographic Names, before this whole thing started. You've got the public comments, public submissions, and then and state names, authorities, and so forth. And then you've got the tribal submissions. So I sort of envision a sort of a spreadsheet with a line of all the various options. And starting on April 25th, the task force had 90 days to review all the submissions and develop its list of the one preferred name for each SQ feature. So they have until July 24th now to get that accomplished. And so each of the individual working groups, there were 4 working groups within the larger task force, they're each working through their stack of names. And then again, on July 24th, they will come up with their resolution. And from that date, the US BGN has 60 days to make the final decision. So our end goal is to have them before the BGN before September 24th. The BGN will have its regular monthly meeting in September, the second Thursday of the month. And as some of you have heard Tim and others talk about, there's a Council of Geographic Names Authorities conference coming up in the middle of September. What we don't know at this point is whether the names will be on the regular September BGN meeting in DC, or will they be on the agenda for discussion essentially the following week at the Geographic Names Authorities conference. It happens to be in suburban Maryland, so it's not a huge trip for us to go to, and the BGN always holds its monthly meeting at the conference. So we've got some logistics here to work out, but just be assured that all the names that were submitted are now under consideration. And between now and September 24th, the final decision will be made on 650 odd SQ names on the landscape. So thank you for your input. And I really enjoyed attending the April meeting and seeing the discussion. I thought it was a very good, very well attended for Sunday afternoon. I really commend the Colorado board for stepping up to the challenge and for working through the list. And I know that the BGN will appreciate that too. So thank you for allowing me to give you an update. Hope that helps.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Runyon? Seeing none, looking at that, while I do have you here, Ms. Runyon, looking at the action list, it looks like we have had some movement on some of the items that we have considered. The recommendation in terms of from us to keep VH Pastor Reservoir, that was essentially concurred with by the USBGN, so that name change to Elk Springs did not occur.
Right.
The Mestahay Mountain was approved.
Right.
And then the same with the Viral Reservoir, that stays Viral Reservoir and
Right.
not Wapiti. And then I think you had to cancel your meeting last month, it sounded like, but wondering if Yensing Gulch has had its hearing yet.
No, it'll be coming up on our June 9th docket. Yes, as it happened, we had very little business to conduct at our May meeting. And so the staff requested to take a month break. Much like you, we're finding that meeting every month is a real challenge. And we've met monthly for years and years, and we very rarely cancel a meeting. but I think we had 2 or 3 names ready for the docket. And as you all know, it takes more time to set up the meeting and get out all the invitations and prepare the material. And so we essentially treated ourselves to the month off. So yes, we'll be meeting June 9th, and Yansing Gulch will be on the agenda for a vote.
Okay, very good. And then there's a question here from Mr. Roybal. Was there a lot of opposition? It's in the chat.
Opposition to?
JD, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question with Ms. Runyon?
Yeah, just opposition to the name changes. I've heard a little bit of it, and I was just curious to see at your level how much you had. Does that
You're
explain it?
referring to the SQ name changes?
Yes, any name changes at all, because with that many comments, I was surprised at that. So I was kind of curious if there was a balance or if they were primarily in favor.
I would say predominantly, yes, people were in favor. Again, 80% were just a form letter, and they were all supportive of just a general effort, that not individual names, but just the overall concept of removing SQ from the landscape. Invariably, with any public forum where you're opening it up for public comment, yes, there's inevitably going to be a small percentage. I would say less than 5% of people who are really, really upset about the whole thing. There was another small percentage that expressed a concern that, yes, these names need to be changed, but there was not nearly enough time allotted for this, not enough public outreach, not enough opportunity to consult with tribes. A couple of your colleagues, other state names authorities, expressed concern that it bypassed the state review process. To be honest, I think Colorado really was the only state that actually made an effort to put out a call for replacement names on your website, had a dedicated meeting to review all the input. So again, kudos to Colorado. Other states complained, but didn't really take the initiative to do anything about it, and just sent a letter saying this was not fair and not done right. So I'm not sure that that's opposition to the name changes per se. It was more to the process and the timing and the way it's been handled, the lack of sort of outreach and communication. Yes, there are some people, of course, who are going to write in and say there's nothing wrong with that word. And we did, even in a couple of the tribal consultation sessions, there was a discussion between various tribes, the fact that in the Eastern tribes, there are some who do not see that word as particularly offensive. They talk about the Algonquian tradition, that name just meant woman, and recognizing that as it got carried west, it took on an offensive connotation. So there was a little bit of debate in that meeting. It was a little awkward, to be honest, between the Western and Eastern tribes, debating whether that name should be changed at all, or should it be retained and better explained. So that was interesting to see the discussion. And so, yes, there are some people who are always going to say there's nothing wrong with that word. I always thought it just meant Indian woman. Why do you have to change it? And of course, some complaints about federal overreach and how the federal government just is doing this. So it was all over the board as far as responses. But I would say, to answer your question, overwhelmingly in support. But of course, 6,000 comments, there's going to be some opposition.
Great.
So I hope that answers the question. It helped.
Thank you, Ms. Runyon. Appreciate that. And then
Sure.
one last question here while we have you. Secretarial Order 3405, removing offensive names from the landscape. Is there any update on that process?
No, I understand that there were 70 applicants to serve on the advisory committee, and it's co-chaired by the Park Service and the Forest Service, and they are reviewing the applications. I did see one person posting on a webinar that she's giving, announcing that she has been selected to serve on that advisory committee, which was news to me, but it sounds like they either have completed their nominations or their review, or it's very, very close. I think they're weeding it down to 13, 14 members. And I heard a rumor they're going to try and have their first meeting in June. But beyond that, I have to confess, I'm a little nervous because at least the task force for 3404 included 5 BGN members. The advisory committee, there'll be no BGN members, no BGN staff support, all non-feds, who, to be honest, probably have no clue what the BGN is or does. So I'm a little nervous about the whole thing, but looking forward to their first meeting and hearing how they intend to handle this. But from what I can read from 3405 is I don't think it'll be handled like 3404. I don't think they're going to come up with these candidate replacement lists. I think what it says is essentially they will reach out to state names authorities and county governments and tribal governments and say, here are the names we've identified as being offensive that we believe need to be changed. Dear state names authority, please reach out to your communities and solicit replacements and submit proposals to the US BGN. So in other words, the conventional proposal process, but with just a little bit more communication and urgency. And I don't know if it'll be a follow-up, basically saying, if you don't change the name in say a year, we'll do it for you. That may be the next step. But I would say Colorado board, be ready. You're going to probably end up doing much like you did for your outreach on the SQ names. You may have a list of 8 or 10 other words with the locations throughout Colorado saying, okay, reach out to the county, the Forest Service, the community, the tribes, and solicit replacements. It's going to be a little bit much more proactive than we've been in the past. So it's all speculation at this point, Tim, but that's my sense of the way it's going to go. It's sort of be ready.
Okay, no, that's very good. Good to know, and we'll stay tuned in on that. Are any other questions for Ms. Runyon? Great. Well, again, we appreciate you taking the time here for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, moving on to our casework here. Agenda item 7 is review consideration of USBGN case 5113, naming an unnamed feature to Cimarron Peak. We have taken this up in the past. I believe the last we had heard this was back in December. We've had some conversation about this. You know what? And I think that I had a note here, Representative Benavides, that you had a question essentially about the board's process, and if we do not approve a name, are we comfortable leaving it unnamed, or should we take do we feel compelled, I think is kind of the rest of this, to find a name, a suitable name for that. And we're going to perhaps talk about that as part of our process document. Part of what we've been doing also has been informing that process document as we develop. We've got a few more revisions from our last meeting, and I think we can write this in. So, you know, I'll just start by saying that I'm comfortable with leaving something unnamed. I don't know, especially in terms of something that is unnamed. I'm not compelled that this body has to figure out a name for it, but allow the proponents or other stakeholders to resubmit other proposals for such a peak. But Representative Benavides, I just want to make sure that I kind of characterize that part of your conversation, if you remember.
I do kind of remember, but I thought we had heard from Ms. Runyon that we're just acting on the proposal. So if we don't approve it, we don't approve it, and that leaves it unnamed.
Yeah. Yep. Then Ms. Runyon has given us the thumbs up there. So, okay. So, you know, I think in the past here, we have had some concerns with Cimarron Peak itself and the connotations that we found, I think, being related to runaway slaves, if I characterized that correctly. And so just wanted to check in here. We did carry this on for a couple of meetings. My sense is that this board has not been compelled by the proposal and changing it to Cimarron. I don't think Cimarron is necessarily unique either. And so just want to get some thoughts here and see what, if anyone had some ideas, if we wanted to continue this again, form a subcommittee, or if we actually want to vote this down and go back to the proponent, let them know. Mr. Damian Davis, it does not look like is with us tonight. Just trying to comb this, who's on tonight and see, but I do not see. But Mr. Davis, if you are, please come off mute and let us know. But board members, what are your thoughts about this?
You know, I kind of think that we discussed it quite a bit, and that if we're not comfortable with the name Cimarron, there's been no counter proposal, that we ought to just kind of vote on it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Representative Benavides.
I agree with Commissioner Berry in that I'm not sure what kind of outreach, the outreach we were doing was, or were planning to do, was the African-American community about that name, but it's not named that, and we don't have to use that name. So, I mean, I would be fine with making a motion to reject the proposal.
Okay, seeing any other conversation? Representative Benavides, I think that the silence here is in agreement. Do you want to make a motion?
Oh, I thought I did make a motion. I move that we reject the proposal.
Okay, there we go.
And I'll second it.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. I think Director Berry had you just by a split second there, Dr. Way. We've got a motion and a second to recommend not approving naming an unnamed feature to Cimarron Peak in Jefferson County. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. We will let Mr. Damian know and encourage them that if you'd like to go ahead and submit some other recommendations or another proposal. Moving on to agenda item 8 now, review consideration of USBGN case 5153, renaming Redskin Mountain to Mount Jerome. Let's see here, we last discussed this. We did have another proposal that was submitted, but they did withdraw the proposal. And then I believe we were going to try and pull together a meeting with the tribes, or Director Redhorse. I think you had a meeting with the tribes and cultural resource officers. I think they were interested in, or some interest was expressed in submitting feedback, but I'm not certain if that ever occurred.
So we did have meetings, and there are goodness, I would say 2 to 3 tribes that were interested in submitting their own proposal. However, we have not received anything on our end, or our team has received any other proposals, despite us having monthly meetings. Although we did cancel April's meeting with the tribes. So.
Okay, very good. Is this something that you can continue, or would you like to have a subcommittee formed to do some outreach with the tribes and have some ongoing conversations?
I love the idea of a subcommittee to not only invite tribes, but members of just the Indigenous community as well, and see if they would like to submit a proposal as well.
Okay, that's perfect. I will volunteer to serve on that subcommittee.
I would like to volunteer. Hi.
Dr. Limerick, Representative Benavides, Dr. Way, and myself. Any others? And Dr. Gonzalez.
Wow.
And I do have the proponent, Miss Sarah Weed, is on the line. Sarah, are you with us?
I am with you, and I'm happy to have the tribes choose a new name to replace this offensive one. I would suggest that perhaps the subcommittee could also consider the proposed renaming of Redskin Creek, which is also in the same area, and get it with two birds, one stone.
Okay, so that is, I'll tell you what, that is one of those that I was hoping to bring up next month and open up. I think that we can include that in the conversation and then time that with an update to officially open that. So I think jumpstarting that conversation certainly won't hurt. So why don't we add that conversation as part of it as well. And then Ms. Weed, since you are the proponent on this, it might be helpful. I think it might streamline it a little bit if you were, since you were willing to receive tribal input to change your proposal and acknowledge that, we could carry it then with your existing proposal, and I think save us a little bit of time and speed things along. Would you like to join us for those conversations?
Sure, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, we will add you to that subcommittee.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got a subcommittee set up for that. We will work to get that organized. Is there any further comment regarding this matter? Is there any public comment regarding USBGN case 5153? Seeing none, we will close public comment, and we will close this case here and move that to a subcommittee meeting. So appreciate all of that. Next, we've got agenda item 9 here. Review consideration of USBGN cases 5279 and 5280, renaming Negro Creek to Clay Creek and Negro Mesa to Clay Mesa. Councilwoman Joseph, I know you've been doing some great subcommittee work on this, and would love to see if you've got an update for the board.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do have an update for the board. We met on, let me see here, give me a second. We met this month and we had about 21 community members in that meeting. We had a long discussion, and based on that discussion with community members, what we came close to was Reparation Creek and Reparation Mesa. Even though as part of the subcommittee work, we came up with that name, the understanding was that we would wait about 30 days to get any feedback from the subcommittee at the time, from some of the community members during the meeting, and see if they have any other name or any other proposals they would like to bring forward. But yes, these are, I suppose, would be the name that we would have as proposal for the board, which is Clay Creek and also Reparation Creek and Reparation Mesa.
Okay, very good. Appreciate that. Appreciate the work. I think your meeting was early May, early this month, the last meeting, correct?
Yes, I'm looking at the time, sorry about that. Yes, it was this month, and I believe I'm looking for it. I can't seem to find the date right now.
That's fine. Yeah.
It was actually May 4th. We had the meeting on May 4th. And
okay, so
yes,
30 days puts us into next month, essentially, when you might receive, is your deadline to receive any other recommendations or input.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So it sounds like then this is on course for our next meeting, perhaps to make a decision on. I do have a question. I did see that article, I think, in the Grand Junction Sentinel. Where's the, I know the county was working with you all, I thought, where's that stand right now?
Yeah, thank you for that. And please, Dr. Wei and Representative Benavides, jump in if I miss anything, because you were at the meeting as well, and Representative Exum was there as well. We, as part of the discussion, we did invite Commissioner Supis. We did invite him to both of our meetings, the meeting on February 16th and where he was actually supposed to go back to the students and have a conversation and bring forward a different name. But as far as we know, between that time, between February 16th and May 4th, he reached out to me and mentioned that the students have decided not to change the name and they would have preferred to just put a plaque. And I did relay that information to the subcommittee with Dr. Wee, Representative Benavides, and also Dr. Gonzalez. And what we as a subcommittee agreed to was to reconvene another group with African-American members of the community and have another discussion. And that's, as part of that discussion, that's where the name Reparation Creek and Reparation Mesa came. And also Commissioner Supres was also at that meeting. We had a lengthy conversation for about an hour and 10 or 15 minutes.
Could I add something that I didn't take notes and it doesn't sound like Commissioner Joseph did either on the plaque? Maybe you could describe the students and their idea of the plaque, that that issue, and that one of the members on the community did some quick research, and actually Miss Runyon was on the call as well, the little committee work, and she had said they had not found anything, and that one of the members of the community found an article that it was not Negro Mason Creek, it was the other N word, and with doing a little research. So they wanted to do more research. And I think that was somewhat telling to all of us, including Ms. Runyon and the other members. I don't remember if Commissioner Supes was still on the line or not, but it's trying to do a little more research to see why we need to change this, that it's not enough to just, even though the students wanted clay, but maybe you could describe their plaque. I don't remember the wording exactly. Commissioner Joseph.
Yes, I don't have the exact wording of the plaque, but I think the spirit of the plaque was that, it was Negro Mesa and they would like to change it to Negro Creek, and that they don't support any type of prejudice against any group. And that was the gist of what I remember of that plaque. I don't know, Dr. Wee, if you have any other thought to that.
You're on mute, Dr. Wade.
Sorry. Yes, Representative Joseph put it well, that the plaque was intended to convey to the public that there was no malicious intent associated with it. And it was a way to, in a sense, exculpate the folks in the area.
I actually have the language. I can read it. Here it is. It says, in 1963, the U.S. Secretary of Interior enacted a mandate in which racial slurs must be removed from any geographic sites. With this act, the names of the creek and mesa, which you see today to the north and east of this plaque, were changed from their original name, a racial slur toward Black Americans, to Negro Creek and Negro Mesa. The Delta County Commissioners have called on the Cedar Ridge High School student body to amend this offensive renaming. The student body went through a nomination and voting process in 2020 and made the decision to change the name to Clay Creek and Clay Mesa. This decision was made not to sweep injustice of the past under the rug, but to give the creek a name that represents Delta County's geography, and to seek social justice by replacing the discriminatory name. This plaque represents one step closer to justice and change in Delta County. We as a community do not wish to have the reputation of discrimination, of hiding from the past. We want positive and peaceful change.
Okay, and so do you expect to hold another committee meeting?
At this time, no. What we as a group came up with was that the name Reparation Mesa was the echoed. That was the name echoed by most of the members, and we did a vote as well. There were a few people who said, well, I want to look further into it. And because they wanted to look further into it, and we said, you know what, we'll go forward as a group with the name Reparation Creek and Reparation Mesa. But if anyone bring any information, we would be happy through me to send that information to the group. And as of today, I've not received anything.
Okay, well then we look forward to, I think, the report out. Are there any other questions for Councilwoman Joseph or the other, those that attended the committee? And then let me open this up to public comment. Is there any public comment? Please raise your hand or your digital hand. Mr. Combs, good evening. How are you?
I'm just fine. Yourselves? Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is David Combs, and I've lived in Grand Junction, which is on the western slope, since 1980. Delta County is just south of here. I'm not sure how many have had the opportunity to come to the western slope, or probably the questions that I have is those individuals that you contacted that were part of the committee, how many of those individuals were from Delta County?
Thank you for this question. And that's something we did talk about during the meeting. They were not from, and I believe Commissioner Supis was the only person from Delta County, but everyone was from Colorado. That it was my understanding. And also, I think maybe Ms. Runyon can talk a little bit more about that. Our understanding is that to put forward a name, you don't have to actually be from Delta County, but most of the people who contributed were people of African-American descent.
From Delta County?
Not from Delta County.
From the western slope?
I don't know exactly where the western slope region is, but you're welcome to speak with Ms. Runyon or Mr. Tim Muck about that.
No, and Mr. Combs, real quick, if I may, just a friendly reminder that public comment is public comment. So,
okay, I'm sorry.
If you want to, explain or open yourself up to that comment, then we can respond if we would like to.
Okay. I've lived on the western slope since 1980. There is not a large population of African, and I live in Grand Junction. There's not a large population of African Americans on the western slope, and there are fewer in Delta County than Mesa County, which is where Grand Junction is located. One of the things that I think you've done a kind of a disservice to, and that's why I was just simply asking about the number of residents that were actually contacted from Delta County or even the western slope. And then why didn't you just, I think you did a disservice to two entities. One is the western slope, the community, and also the students. Why didn't you ask them, come in and talk to us or get on a Zoom and let us know why you want to go in this direction? I think I sent in a public comment via email, so that's also on there. And I just think more needs to be done regarding getting input from the stakeholders on the western slope. You got that community. You got the community of Cedar Ridge. There's a very small town. To kind of give you a little background, Grand Junction used to be a hotbed for the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, and so you have even those undercurrents still occurring. Okay, during the social unrest, we renamed a couple of buildings on campus. Colorado Mesa University is located in Grand Junction. We renamed buildings on campus. There have been articles regarding what has occurred here, and not necessarily reparations, but how we move forward. And I just think that without getting more community involvement, you're not moving forward. You're going to have kind of my own personal feeling is this: you're going to have a faction that feels, okay, we tried to do something and we weren't listened to, simply because they did not involve us. I would have loved to have been on this committee. I just saw Tony Exum over the weekend in the Springs. I'm part of, this is what I do here. We started a Martin Luther King Day celebration back in 1984. I'm the president of Black Citizens and Friends of Mesa County, okay? We're having a George Floyd, will be our 3rd annual George Floyd commemoration. We're having Juneteenth, so that's what happens in Mesa County. And that's why I'm saying there's a historic, there are historic Black families here in the Valley that even people in Delta County know about, okay? And so if you're looking for names, there's that. If you're looking for actions, a lot of people don't realize that Buffalo soldiers came from Utah to the Cedar Ridge area to help settlers go through Indian territory. Okay, people don't know that. And it's simply because that's some history of the Western Slope. I'll give you one more similar example to what we're talking about. There's an African-American cowboy who rode around eastern Utah, was just on the maybe 30 miles from us. Very infamous cowboy in the early 1800s, helped people, so on and so forth. He passed away, so they named a canyon that he resided in after him, and it was called Nigger Bill Canyon, okay? Back in the 60s, similar to what happened at Nigger Mesa and Nigger Creek, back in the 60s, those names were changed, and they changed it to Negro Bill Canyon, okay? And then roughly about 7 years ago, it was changed to his namesake. His name is Bill Grandstaff, and it was named Bill Grandstaff Canyon. So you've got examples of this currently occurring. And there were some people that wanted it to remain Nigger Bill Canyon. So every time that name was mentioned, it would start a conversation, okay? And so that's why I'm saying, I think you need to go a little deeper here. I think you need to get, if you can't get over here, find a way to get more Western Slope African Americans involved, because I can tell you right now, you're saying getting African Americans from Delta involved. There's probably 3 families of African Americans in Delta County.
Mr. Combs, typically we keep the comments to about 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm done. I just want to when will we be able to continue this?
Okay, so I'll let Councilwoman Joseph speak. She put her name, her information in the chat there for you to reach out. Also, would you go on our website? We can post that in our link, because we are looking for stakeholders. You know, this body's relatively new. We are looking for stakeholders to engage on these issues. And if you wouldn't mind submitting your contact information to be kept apprised of these, and then we can also reach out to stakeholders on various issues when they come up around the state, and we would be happy to do that. So with that, I appreciate you. There's the link in there, and there's a form on there. And then let me give Miss Councilwoman Joseph the floor here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Muck. I just want to thank you, Mr. Combs, for your passionate statements. And actually, I just wanted to make the statement that actually we did, again, we had our first meeting in February, and I believe it was February 17th and in May 4th as well. And we reached out to Commissioner Supis, and we said, please, you know, are there African Americans in Delta County? Or can you look into that? In my understanding, I don't want to mischaracterize anything that he says, but my understanding is that he did some outreach, but he was not able to reach you or reach other members of the African American community in that area. But I really appreciate all the comments and statements that you make. And also my understanding, please correct me, Ms. Runyon or Chair Mock, if I am not saying this right, but I do believe, even though as a subcommittee, we will bring forward a name, and also the student and the commissioner will bring forward a name, I do believe you also have the opportunity between now and then to also bring forward a name if you somehow work with a group of African American in Delta County. And I do believe the board would consider that. Am I correct, Mr. Mock?
We can always accept proposals. We do get proposals sometimes while we are considering certain matters. And then I think Councilwoman Joseph, if Mr. Combs does reach out with you and there's a conversation, we'll see where that kind of goes. But there are those opportunities, because I don't think we're not going to be making a decision on this until our next meeting, which we expect to be in July. Are there any other board members? Dr. Limerick.
I had a colleague here at University of Colorado, an African-American colleague who did just 2 days ago, no, a day ago, yesterday, 2 days ago, said that she had heard some concerns from friends on the Western Slope, and we did not have time to pursue that conversation. And I'm wondering, as an individual member of the board, should I ask to know more about those folks? I just wasn't quite sure. It was sort of a friend chain, and I wasn't quite sure of my standing as an individual member, if I should say, oh, put me in touch with your friends on the Western Slope. But a door opened and I have not gone through it, and I would be quite happy to go through it. But I just wasn't quite sure of my standing as an individual board member, or if I should join the committee.
I think it'd be, and I see Mr. or Dr. Way, you've got a hand maybe to answer that question. You're on mute.
My apologies again. I was going to suggest that Patty, rather Professor Limerick, gets the name, can simply pass it on, to Councilwoman Joseph, and she can take it from there.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, is that you do that and let the subcommittee in Councilwoman Joseph kind of have that conversation and figure out what any next steps, if there are any. Okay. So continuing here with some public comment. Is there any other public comment regarding this matter? Please turn your camera on or raise your digital hand. Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment. Mr. Combs, really do appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Board members, is there any further discussion regarding this matter? Okay, Councilwoman Joseph, I think what we'll do then is we will look to see if there's any follow-up from your conversations in that 30-day time period. And we look forward to the update, and we'll be in touch here in the meantime. And then any consideration that we have in July, we will get this all organized appropriately.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, we will close agenda item 9, and then we are moving on to agenda item 10, the conflict policy. AG Haller or AG Beatty, I'm looking to you if you wanted to lead us in this conversation. I'm wondering if this is an executive session issue.
So we can handle it in 2 different ways. We can have the discussion live and in person. If we need to make edits, we'll have to make them sort of publicly. This is not a secret. This is not a really sort of hot legal topic. So I'm totally comfortable with our having this conversation among the board members and in public session.
Okay, great. If there's no objection, I think my preference is, as long as we're discussing conflict of interest matters, I think this is something that the public would be interested in, and I'm certainly fine with having that in open session, unless there's any disagreement.
Yeah, I apologize. That was less than articulate.
No, that's perfect. Okay, so we will then, AG Beatty, turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay. So you all have in your board packet at the very, very end, a very short, hopefully very crisp document regarding conflicts of interest. You will recall that when you adopted your bylaws, or for those of you who are new and catching up, in the bylaws that were adopted months ago, the board told itself that it would adopt a conflict policy separate from the bylaws. So this is a draft document that is designed to govern conflicts of interest for you in your decision-making as board members. So in the spirit of Tim's method for going through the bylaws, I am really happy if folks have questions or concerns to go sort of section by section through the document and see if anyone has any questions or concerns. This is a new attempt at the conflict of interest policy. We had brought it before you once before and realized that you guys had questions, and we did a ton of sharpening in order to be able to bring you what you have now, which is something much simpler. And so, and this is also, you do not need to vote on this today. We want you all to have a chance to take a look at it and ask whatever questions you have. And then Tim, I think we were planning on bringing it back again, but having this sort of look and opportunity to talk about it today, right?
Yep, that is perfect. So with that, Ms. Beatty, are you comfortable with seeing if any board members have any questions or want to walk through the document line by line, paragraph by paragraph, or if there are any, if I suspect if there is anything particular, we can probably just address it by that way. So board members, any questions, comments, thoughts, discussion items regarding the conflict policy? Representative Benavides.
Thank you. My only comments are on the last page, the rule of necessity and the disclosure to the Secretary of State. I think in the original conflict of interest policy you gave us, I had mentioned, well, at least I wrote it on my comments, the rule of necessity to start with. I'm not sure we even need that, because I thought we need a majority to have a quorum. And I don't know if we defer to Robert's rules or what we do if once we have a quorum and we need a majority vote to pass something, why it becomes a rule of necessity that would allow somebody with a conflict to continue on, because we can always set things forward to a subsequent meeting. I'm not in favor of someone continuing just so we maintain enough to vote on it when they have a known conflict of interest.
No, you're absolutely right. As long as you have a quorum to kick off the meeting and somebody leaves and you lose the quorum, you can still continue the meeting. So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. And then you are not in favor of being able to allow someone, in order to take a vote on something where they have a conflict of interest, to reconstitute the quorum. Am I getting this right?
Well, I think you got it right at first, because, and if that's correct, that was my understanding too. Once we establish quorum, even if someone leaves, we had a quorum to start the meeting. And so then it just takes a majority of those present to win. So I'm not even sure when this would arise, but even if it did arise and so many people had left, we didn't want to vote, we would just move it forward. I just wouldn't be in favor of allowing a person who wants to recuse themselves, and despite that, and despite a conflict, to still continue and to vote.
I think you're absolutely right, and would be happy to take out paragraph 3E.
Okay. My other question was on the disclosure to the Secretary of State. In the one proposal you gave us initially for conflict of interest, you had us notifying the chairperson of this group or the DNR executive director. Right now, they're one and the same, but one or the other. And I guess I'm a little more comfortable with that, but I'm not real sure of this whole part and why we would ever go to the Secretary of State to disclose something of a private interest.
So this is actually, in statute, it's in 2418-110. And the statutory provision allows a member of a board or commission who doesn't receive any compensation for serving, so volunteers like you all, prior to acting on a manner that could give rise to a conflict, to make a disclosure to the Secretary of State, which then serves as it then allows that person to perform the official act, and it constitutes an affirmative defense to any kind of personal liability that might attach to the action. And it also covers the board itself. So in the event that somebody has a conflict of interest, this provision, this statutory provision, allows them to go and disclose it to the Secretary of State and then act. And that disclosure to the Secretary of State serves as a shield against, it serves as an affirmative defense to any kind of civil action that could be brought against the board or that person. So, and I'll also just share with you really quickly that in the entire time that I've been representing a number of boards and commissions, I've never seen anyone do this.
Yeah, and I guess my concern is on page 2, the page above that B, they do disclose to the board, and you cite the same statute, you cite paragraph 108.5 as opposed to 110. But in that case, they don't even really have to say what the issue is, other than just they can disclose their basis, but they don't have to say why. So if it's a private interest that they don't want to discuss, they can just say, nobody would know unless they disclosed it. And if they're disclosing it to the board, then they could just say, you know, I have a personal interest in something that creates a conflict of interest, so I want to recuse myself. They would only have to describe it if they don't want to recuse themselves. Am I missing something? I'm trying to figure out when this would ever come up, and you're saying it never does, but I just don't see ever reporting to the Secretary of State when they can notify this board of a conflict.
The Secretary of State doesn't notify the board. And honestly, I haven't, so because I've never seen this used before, I have literally never peeled back the layers to try and figure out how this particular process works. I am literally just citing the statute in here, and the whole point of it was to let people know that if they do have a conflict of interest, they can go and disclose it to the Secretary of State and then can continue to act. And then that disclosure to the Secretary of State can shield the board from civil or criminal action. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't believe there is any provision in here that requires the Secretary of State to disclose it to the board. I don't see anything in the statute or the summary of the statute that's in this document, but it is my duty to let people know the pieces of the conflicts equation that apply to board members, and to let people know that they have a process whereby they might actually be able to act in the face of having a conflict of interest, and would protect both the board and themselves.
Well, if we're going to come back to this next month, I'll do a little more research on this, and hopefully you can as well, Ms. Beatty, since it's never been used, and see if there is any case law on it, because I'm not sure how, other than the statute says it works as a shield. I still don't see, if the board member is going to do an official act, which means he's going to vote on something. He or she is going to vote on something despite a conflict they've disclosed to someone else, but they haven't disclosed to the board, which is part of this in paragraph B. I'm not, the board should never be held liable for something they were never aware of, even if that disclosure was never made to the Secretary of State? How could we as a board be held liable? And you're saying it offers a shield to us. And I'm just a little more confused because I'll do a little research on it, but I have concerns of how B and F work together.
So I want to be really clear. You said that I said it had never been used. And what I said was that I had never seen any of my boards use it. I do not know whether or not it has been used, and I do not know whether or not there is case law interpreting it. So I am very happy to go and do some additional research and come back, and you do not need to do your own research. That's what I'm here for. So I'm happy to do the research and share that research with all of you so that you feel more comfortable about this and how it functions, so that you all know that this is a tool out there that you can use. So I'm happy to report back more about how this works. I do not read the statute to require an actual conflict of interest. It actually says impinge on, hang on, let me make sure I'm reading that, impinge on his fiduciary duty and the public trust. So it could be that a board member isn't sure whether or not it rises to the level of an actual conflict of interest, and that isn't a perfectly clear area of the law. It's very sort of factually based, and so it may just be that they want to cover the board and themselves, and therefore if they're not sure whether or not it will actually present a conflict problem for the board or themselves, they've gone to the Secretary of State in order to create a shield. So it doesn't say actual conflict of interest. And you have mentioned B, and let me see which B you're referring to.
Well, and before you go to B, I guess the second sentence of that paragraph with the of the second paragraph, it says, if the board member then performs the official action. So at that point, somebody, at least the Secretary of State, has said this is not really a conflict, and they believe, if they weren't sure, it's not a conflict. So I would say if they did that, why wouldn't they have nothing to disclose to the board, since someone has told them or they feel comfortable it's not a conflict. I just want to know how those two work together and the disclosures needed.
There is no rule in the statute on behalf of the Secretary of State to do anything other than receive this information. They do not weigh it. They do not evaluate it. They do not give them a clean bill of health. It is literally a disclosure to the Secretary of State and a shield for the board or the individual.
Okay, well, then again, if you can do some research and see how it's been used, and in light of B, how it's used.
I'm sorry, you need, section
B, paragraph B.
1B, 2B, 3B.
B, just B, the way this, oh, it's 3B. It's the same one I'm looking under, the disclosure to the board.
Yeah, okay. So 3B on page 2 and 3F.
Yep, I'll do some research and let you guys know. And thanks for raising those concerns. It's really helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions, comments? Okay, AG Beatty, really appreciate you taking the time assisting us through this very much, and look forward to then bringing this back at our next meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll just share sort of one other bigger picture thing to keep in mind. The conflicts of interest. So Colorado has a very sort of, it has a lower bar for conflicts of interest, and they are largely driven by financial conflicts of interest. And renaming, advice to the governor about renaming is, I think it will be more unusual for anyone to find. I think it will be unusual for anyone to find themselves in an actual conflict of interest situation. I think there may be more of an appearance of impropriety type issue that could arise. So for your purposes, do read through this, but remember that there are very few things that you're doing that involve dollars. So focus your energy on the appearance of impropriety and make sure that that is something that you understand, because that is not driven by statute. It is really driven by this policy, and it is designed to provide a thought process for all of you around if you're going to be acting on a particular matter, the framework for that matter, if there is something that makes you feel a little bit like, ooh, this is kind of close to me, or I said something in the past about this and I might need to clarify it. So focus on that 2D, because those are the kinds of issues that I imagine that this board may be more likely to encounter.
Very good. Appreciate that very much. And thanks for bringing this to us.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, just one last call to the board members, see if there's any other questions or comments regarding the conflict policy. Okay, with that then, and then Ms. Beatty, I'm assuming we don't have any other reason to go into executive session. Okay, so we can move past that. Now we will go to agenda item 12 and open this up to public comment. Just a reminder, appreciate everybody that does submit public comment. I would like you to keep your comments listed, or keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Public comment is just that, is public comment. Should the board want to respond or have any follow-up questions, we will take that up at that moment. And then please keep your comments respectful. So with that, Commissioner Wheelock, you have raised your hand first. Anybody else that wants to get on deck here, go ahead and raise a digital hand like Commissioner Wheelock. Welcome and good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Commissioner, and to the entire commission. First of all, I'd like to say I appreciate the work that you're doing more than ever after sitting through this meeting. I've been through a couple of these with you, and I say that in part because I've been working on the topic that I came to talk about for a couple of years, and it's only 2 items that that are in Clear Creek County, one of which is still on your list. And also because I've sat through a lot of this on another state commission I was on, and I'm kind of having PTSD from watching the protocol and trying to work out the issues around conflict of interest. So I want to say that I appreciate the work that you do a lot. I'd also like to congratulate Dr. Way. I think the last time I was here, he was being given a compliment for something as well. And I don't know how many awards you get, but I think it's kind of coincidental to come in here and see 2 like that. I've come to make the case today for moving Mount Evans forward as expeditiously as possible, but not suggesting that there's anything that you're doing that's remiss or that you're not already doing a lot of work as hard as you can go, but just wanted to make this case. Following years of work by proponents, Clear Creek County engaged for 1.5 years in the process on Mount Evans. We began with outreach to stakeholder tribes, the Evans family, and other stakeholders as well. We invited the Cheyenne and Arapaho as guests to come to us in December of 2020 to tell us their story surrounding Sand Creek and around, in general, the need for renaming without getting specific about proposals. We then started with S-Word Mountain in the spring of 2021, invited public comment for several weeks, held additional public meetings, including another educational presentation, particularly with regard to Owl Woman, Mestahay, and S-Word Mountain. We had another session of evening public comment where we let the public come, everyone from around, speak to us as much as they wished, and then we held an action session on it. All of these were highly publicized in newspapers, and we had there were articles written about them, both nationally and locally. We voted to adopt Mestahay, which moved on to your committee and the BGN, and that action was taken this last December. Part of the reason that we moved on that first was because we wanted to engage both of the 2 tribes that have proposals on Evans and see if that engagement would cause collaboration to happen between them and perhaps resolve their differences over name change. When it became clear that wasn't going to happen, we moved forward with Evans this year and earlier in the year, and we followed the same general process. We contacted the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute tribes this time contacted the Evans family and other proponents, and we held highly publicized meetings. The vast majority of comment was in favor of name change in every case, and that information that we have is available to you if you'd like us to ship it along in a summary document of all the comment that we had on Evans. The majority of those who favored change favored Mount Blue Sky, and so we decided to support Mount Blue Sky, and we've moved that on to you in the form of a resolution. And I believe the time has come to move forward with the CGNEB at the first and next reasonable opportunity as you move forward with your additional proposals. I've heard that at a high state level, the awareness and support for Mount Evans is not sufficient to move forward at this time. And I'd like to point out that it's been 158 years since the Evans Proclamation in Sand Creek took place. There are 157 years since Governor Evans lost his job over those incidents, and 125 years since Mount Evans received his name. In all that time, no one seems to have become better educated by waiting for the public to organically become more aware and educated on the subject, despite the fact that this case has been in the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Denver Post, the Colorado Sun, and many other publications on local and national TV over the last year and a half. So I would submit that in this case has been more publicized than any other, and that actually taking it up would do honor to those people who have worked so long, to the victims of the massacre and other massacres that took place like that. And I urge you, and I was very pleased to hear that you did say, Commissioner Mock, that your intention is to take it up before the end of this year. And I just want to encourage you that I feel it's ready for prime time. I feel that due diligence has been done, and we're happy to share all the information that we have, as well as any other work that you do on it. Thanks again for your work, and none of this is to insinuate that you're not doing a really hard job and the best you can at it at all times. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheelock. Yeah, congratulations. I was able to tune into your meetings after they occurred on your Facebook page there, the county's Facebook page, and thought that those were actually a model that we will take up. And then in regards to how we are scheduling this, I'm looking at that larger calendar and the items that we have, and if we can get some others started and have some subcommittees working, I think we can accomplish a lot more within this time frame and get those accomplished. So you heard me kind of walk through that calendar here earlier. So we will be taking up Mount Evans, I can assure you that.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Commissioner Wheelock? Okay, with that, Jacine, good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? I just wanted to say I agree with Commissioner Wheelock, left a message in the chat and a letter as well. Just, you've been working so hard on all of this, and there's been behind the scenes, Cheyenne and Arapaho tribal members as well have been working for years on this as well. And just even putting it on the agenda is a huge emotional breakthrough, I think, for everybody. Just, and I know there'll be a lot of work to go through the task force and look at each proposal and work out with all the stakeholders that will take a long time in itself. But even just getting that process started would be a huge, I think, relief for everybody that's been working on it for so long. So just encourage you, whenever it does work, to put it on sooner than later if possible. And there has been momentum from the county level, and then it, everybody knows that it goes to the state and then federal. So just encouraging to follow that process, and just with the momentum everywhere, in as Commissioner Wheelock mentioned in the news and just all over the country right now. So just encourage that. I'm also talking on behalf of Tim Swales, who could not meet it tonight, and he wanted me to just mention again that he does support renaming Mount Evans as well, and to rename it to Mount Blue Sky. So that was on behalf of Tim Swales as well. So thank you.
We appreciate that. Thanks for your comments, board members, if there's any follow-up questions or comments. And then thanks for the shout out for Tim Swales, because I think this is the first meeting he has actually not been able to attend. So thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Mr. Roybal, and am I, JD, please correct me. I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your last name correctly.
Gustavo, sí, Edison, Rival también, Roybal. Yeah, it's how you do it. It's right. No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. And they explained it so easily, even in the chat, just what they said. And you know, I'm not usually short for words, but it was easy. They explained it very well. So
Very good. We appreciate that, and thanks to you for joining us tonight. I think your streak continues, and we're always happy to see you and hear from you. So thank you for participating. Any additional public comment, please raise your hand. Okay, with that, we will close public comment. Board members, I've got one last item here, looking towards our next meeting in July. If we keep with the third Thursday, I think that puts us into July 21st in the evening, if we want to keep the 6 to 8 p.m. Also wondering if we are ready to try a hybrid meeting and we can meet perhaps together at one of our offices at 1313 Sherman for those that can make it. I don't think this has got to be mandatory. We've got, I think, the technology and some owls that can help us manage the conversation, but allow others to also join us remotely if that is more convenient. But I know that that was something that was expressed in previous meetings. So one to the date, do we still want to keep the evening 6 to 8? That would be July 21st. Thoughts, Representative Benavides?
Oh, well, I don't mind the evening, but I know it gets tougher in the summer. And I know last summer and early part of fall, we were doing morning meetings, like starting first thing in the morning, and people seem to be able to do that. I can do either one. So.
Okay, yeah, I remember this being part of a conversation because we did have, when we had it in the morning, we had some conflicts with board members' occupations. If these evenings are working, then maybe we kind of stick with this, but let's see what others have to say. Councilwoman Joseph.
Yeah, no, thank you. I, for instance, would prefer the evening time. It works better with my schedule, my professional work schedule. And I seem to not have missed any meetings since it's been in the evening. So thank you.
Okay, Dr. Wei, thank you.
Either works for me.
Okay. Any other board members have any comments? If the evenings are working, I think that we have maintained pretty consistent attendance in the evenings, then we can continue to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. July 21st, 6 p.m. And then thoughts about, do we want to try and make it hybrid? So those that want to meet in person, we can do so. Let's see, Dr. Gonzalez nodding your head in agreement. We can set that up, and so who shows on that date, given where we all might be, we will try and make those arrangements. So stay tuned for that. With that, any further discussion, comments, thoughts by the board before we adjourn? And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We got a second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, everybody, good evening. It was so good to see you. Thank you for the conversation, and to the public for joining us. Thank you. See you in July.
Pues también. Buenas noches a todos.
Good night.